Jack Thompson, the Throwin' Samoan. Thank you so much for joining us. We really appreciate it. Boy, what do you think after everything that has happened here over the past few months? Were you were you surprised after Rolovich came out in July saying that he wouldn't be vaccinated that we'd come down to this?
No, I thought somewhere along the lines in that span of however many months, was hoping, praying actually that there would be a revelation of sorts, that an epiphany, if you will, um, for him to realize that, I get it, understand his personal views, respect the stand that he made. In that, in this case he followed through with it, and but our choices, we have consequences, for every choice that we make, good and bad. And I was hoping that the realization that it's not just him, that decision affected. Forget about the Kruger Nation in general, throughout the country, throughout the world. I mean, everyone felt it. Everyone felt it. That hurt. That's the biggest part that hurt for me, on a broad sense, and the ramifications of his choice. And then when it came down to the nut crunching, yesterday, the reality of it all came crashing home. Coaches having to clear their offices. Coaches, I consider Nick a friend. I don't know if he's, too happy with me, but, he and I had long talks. And, for me, it would have been pushing a rope in terms of trying to convince. I was just praying for some, again, revelation, some miracle, some epiphany, but it didn't happen. And he stuck to his guns, and now there's this fallout. And my whole position the whole time is, if this was going to be the end case, my whole life, and I think this about me, Enrique, is, I want to be part of the solution. And that's where my focus turned in terms of if this happened, if him staying happened, that was the most ideal scenario. That there was some kind of we've got past certain barriers, and he was able to get the vaccination, and then everything would have been great. He was certainly, from a coaching standpoint, he was the type of coach I thought he would always be. He's a damn good coach. Mm-hmm. Don't care what anyone says. He's a damn good coach. And he's a very good guy. He's a great family man. There's no way I'm going to say anything bad about him. My only thing is that, his actions hurt us. And that's a fact. And I wish him the best. I wish there's several other coaches on that had to leave. One in particular was a good friend, and I hurt for him and his family.
Yeah. One of the things that you said early on was that no one is bigger than the university.
Yeah.
Which I thought those were strong words, and really thoughtful words. Did you ever say that to him?
Yeah. It's a philosophy that I've had my whole life. Through the course of my discussing with him, he and I had long talks when he called, after Coach Leach left, and he called and we had good long talks. Good talks. I don't know. I don't remember if it was 20 minutes or an hour. It wasn't an hour, but we had good talks. And he's always known my philosophy. I've always tried to conduct myself that way. I mean, it's just the way I've always thought. And when it was obvious that he was heading down this road, my attention's turned to, okay, how can we help? And my attention's turned immediately where they should turn to is the players.
Yeah, the
Those
players.
are the guys. Yeah,
So
those guys are the victims.
because players have football players have a real relationship with these coaches, right? The
Absolutely.
coach recruits you. They bring you in. They sell you on their philosophy. They say they're going to take care of you. And I can't help but think that these players feel betrayed, but it's more than that because, you know, what the coach means to them. I mean, how do you feel when that happens? I mean, you've had coaches that have left when
Yeah.
yeah. How does it make you feel as a player?
Well, through the prism of and through the glasses and eyes of an 18, 19-year-old, it was unbelievable because we talked earlier about I had 4 coaches in 4 years,
Right.
and I went through that process in trying to deal with men who claimed certain things, and look, I'm the head coach, and you buy off on that only for them to walk a year later. So I became very skeptical, and for me, they had to prove it.
Mm-hmm.
And after, say, the second go around, when we were talking about Coach Sherrill leaving, he came one year and he bolted.
Yeah,
And
Jackie Sherrill.
Yeah, and then Warren Powers came and he bolted. I didn't want to talk to them. They ruined my image of head coaches. Guys who are supposed to be above, and they're there to teach things more than football.
Yeah, what do you, as a player, what do you rely on? Because in communities of color, athletics is sort of a way out of your situations, and coaches have it's not what like a lot of white people think. What you see in this, I mean, communities of color do revere coaches.
Yeah,
I mean, they have a special place. What is that bond like? I mean, why is his leaving going to leave a scar on a lot of the players of color on that team?
well, I know in particular the players, the Polynesian kids.
Mm-hmm.
I spoke to the Polynesian kids about 3 weeks ago, and there are about, I think, 15 in the room, and certainly I can relate to them. And to your point, Matt, we come from a culture that is different from the quote American culture. We are about community. We are about family. We are about respecting our elders. We work hard, and basically, in the case of the Polynesians, I mean, you can't deny it. We come from a warrior background, and we're fiercely competitive. And so, in that scene, for the Polynesians, we bond with our coaches, our leaders, if you will, and it hurts. It's like, being stabbed in the back. They're leaving and whatnot, and I get this, but it also it's something you can point to. It's just another building block in growing up.
Mm-hmm.
They're seeing the world for what it really is, and my encouragement to them is that I'll tell you what is the saving grace, and this is where we all have in common. Not you, Matt. Don't take it personally, but with me and Enrique and those who went to Washington State University. Doesn't matter what generation. We all have this one thing in common. We went to school at Washington State University, and for most of us, Pullman. And there's a culture there, very similar to the Polynesian culture. It's these are talks I had with Rolo, actually. Pullman is like an island unto its own. It's instead of an ocean, it's surrounded by wheat fields.
Yeah.
And the ag community is very similar to a Polynesian community. Family, faith, hard work, loyalty, humility. And that's why I think it resonates so well for the Polynesian kids. And for this, this rocked their boat. It really did. I've talked to Jaden Delora a couple times already, And I'm so proud of him. You know, he's still a young man.
Oh yeah.
He's having to grow up quickly, and he is right now. He's taken on the mantle of the leader that he needs to be. You know, by virtue of his playing and his leadership on the field, it translates to leadership off the field, and that's where, you know, I'm in his ear to not forget that. You know, he's had a rocky start, but he's maturing. His family were in Pullman on Saturday. They loved Pullman. They came from Honolulu. Mm-hmm. And so it shook them to their core. But you know what? Again, I told them, you know, the coaches will come and go, but your school and your fellow Cougs will always be here. And that's what is so important, that come Saturday, we have a show of force, you know, from the fans. Yeah. And they need to realize that these young men, you know, they strap on that helmet and shoulder pads, and they're out duking it, you know, wearing the crimson and gray. That means something. And it warms my heart to hear. I had a friend who was going to give me his season tickets right next to me. He called me and said, Sunday, you know, I have 2 tickets. I won't be able to make it. He called me today and said, you know, I hope you don't mind, but I need those tickets back. You know, we read Jaden's press release. Right. I'm going to be there.
I saw that on Twitter, and I was really moved by that. Yeah. Because you're right. He's had a bit of a rocky start, but that kid is so energetic on the field. Yeah. But he said, you know, bring it on, Cougar Nation, to be there Saturday. Right. So to me, I look at this as an opportunity. Yep. Yes, hard time here. That's life. But let's move on, because I still think this team has an opportunity to, to get a bowl game if they can, you know, play the way they can.
And what a fitting, last couple chapters in particularly our seniors, you know, their careers. You know, Enrique, Matt, you know, they suffered through 2 deaths of teammates. This is going to be the 3rd coach. I mean, just the COVID. Right. And, you know, they have an opportunity, to your point, Enrique, to really write a special story and not succumb to, you know, what a lot of people think is going to happen. You know, and for me, win, lose, or draw, you know, I want to see them go out and fight their asses off, and, you know, fight their asses off for one another and for the school. Yeah, really. And those are the bonds that will tie them for the rest of their lives. In the 4 years that I was there, and the class that I went with at Washington State, it was the best class in the history of Washington State. We had 2 first-rounders, a couple 3rd-rounders, one wide receiver, Brian Kelly, went up to the CFL. You know, he's in their Hall of Fame. And, you know, we went through very tumultuous times. And, you know, there was talk back then, you know, they need to send Washington State to the WAC.
Oh, yeah.
And but we fought that, and we came out the better for it. And to this day, we are extremely tight as friends. It'll bond them. It can bond them.
I take it you have not talked to Rolovich since this happened.
No, I haven't talked to him. Yeah. No. You know, he has far more important things he needs to deal with, and frankly, I've got important things to do myself, you know, along with the rest of us Cougs, and that is to rally. Honestly, I mean, I see the social media stuff out there, and I feel the hurt, the angst that, you know, social media just blew up, good and bad. Mm-hmm. But at the end of the day, you know, whether you for him and, you know, the stance he took, or you're against it, you're with the school and whatever, it doesn't matter. What matters are those kids who are going to strap it up come Saturday for us. For those who are for it or those who are against it, they're still playing for Washington State University. And it's time for us, you know, to psychologically strapped as fans. I mean, and get out there and support them.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's interesting that this comes right on the heels of the John Gruden issue also. I mean, it's just, and those guys, the Raiders stepped up. So,
adversity has a way of really teaching people, and also you seeing what people are made of, right? Mm-hmm. And like I said, I'm hoping that this class, this team, I know they have it in them. I mean, the way they play, oh my gosh, they can really turn this into a very special season, and that's what I'm praying for.
So, what do you think? I mean, Rolovich, he chose this hill to die on, right?
Yeah.
And he is, I mean, no one will take this away from him. He is a very talented coach. I mean,
yeah.
he can motivate young men. What awaits him now in the professional world? I mean, is he just toxic now? Because nobody wants to bring that kind of press to their campus, right?
Yeah, and I don't know, and that's not for me to decide. And I don't know if how much good is going to come out of it. I'm sure one thing's for sure, that they'll see that this guy can coach. He can, and in the beginning of the season, we got off to a very rocky start. I just saw the people out there. He's a terrible baloney. You don't know what you're talking about. And to his credit, he stayed the focus, and he got all the other guys to stay the focus and believe in themselves, and they turned it around. But he knew this wasn't going to end well, and it didn't.
What do you think of the interim now?
Well, I think he's a very good coach. If you look since Nick came on board, it's funny. I texted Jake Dickert in December last year, and I mentioned to him that it wasn't the best season, but what I saw was a defense that played hard no matter what the score was, and they were running to the ball. And you notice these things as a former quarterback, and I used to coach high school, and you saw that our defense had a lot of heart, and then you also saw that we had some talent to go with that. Another year with Coach Dickert, they only got better, and they did. And in December 2020, I texted him to that, I tipped my hat to him. And then you look at this season, they held us in the season until our offense caught up, and Jaden started to gel, and the belief structure that they're building amongst each other on the offensive side was starting to match the intensity that existed on the defensive side. And so I predict, in this game, Lord willing, they come together, band together. Matt, you kind of mentioned it earlier about the Las Vegas Raiders and how they rallied, under adversity. This could very well be the case. And what's going to lead it, I believe, is our defense. Our defense they could be something special with our end rushers, Jackson and Stone. Oh, those guys are impressive. And then you have Jihad Woods. I think he's 45 years old, playing middle linebacker. I mean, he's been there forever, I think.
Yeah.
But he's a rock, and he got called for spearing targeting whatever last game, so he won't be eligible until halftime. But he's just a steadying force out there. Goodness gracious, they can go out and let all their pent up angst that has built up this whole week, let it out on the other Cougars.
Yeah. So, as you have this kind of position with, you're not employed by the university, but I look at you as this kind of football ambassador, but more than that, Jack. I mean, because I think there's great respect for you, particularly with the players and the Polynesian players, as you mentioned, because your own background. Um, and as we were talking earlier about, coaches come, they go, you kind of lose a sense of trust because they disappear for whatever reason. Sometimes they take bigger jobs, more money. Sometimes
Yeah.
in a case like this, that is one that is just, you can't really explain too well. But it seems to me that you've taken on almost this bit of a father figure role for these guys. Do you accept that? And is that an important part for you to be connected to the school and to the football team?
Well, yeah, I'm glad you didn't say a grandfather role.
But you are a grandfather.
Yeah, that's right. I am a proud one. I
Yeah,
have 3 of them.
me too.
And,
I got one.
well, yeah, and I value my relationship with our school. I value my relationship with our football team, for sure. And the difference between football at Washington State University, if you go to the U, yeah, they love their football program. They say they love their school, but I'll tell you, they love their football program more. For us, like, I love our football program, but I love my school more. I mean, I think that's very important. And, and that's something I want to pass on to these kids, these young guys. It's about the university and what they are affording you to experience, and ultimately affording you, because less than 3% of those guys are going to go play at the next level. And it's those relationships that they build there at Washington State University that will last them the rest of their lives and will impact them in their lives in what they do when football is finished. And that I couldn't be more grateful to WSU for providing that for me and the friends that I have. And for me, not do anything would just not feel right. And if I'm asked to do something, I'd be more than happy to do it. It's just the way it's been, I guess.
Okay, so let's get serious. Who's going to win the Apple Cup this year?
Well, we are.
All right, because we know that Oregon's going to win the Pac-12 North, so that goes without question.
Careful, man. I'll tell you something. The Pac-12 North it's really interesting. At one time, I mean, Oregon State, they just pounded UW, and then they came into our game, and rightfully so. Of Jonathan Smith, I love him as a coach. He's got them playing hard-nosed football, and that was a real test. And our guys came out and just pounded them. Our defense, and Jaden came along, and then you watch them last. Stanford. My goodness, mm-hmm. Stanford. They beat the Ducks, and they beat USC, and we beat them now five years in a row. It's just a wacky conference we have, and we're always beating up on each other. And however, we have not beaten up on the Dogs. I'll just be straight up. It's our turn. It's our turn.
I hope so, man.
Me too.
Well, I hope so too. So okay, this every Husky listener just turned us off, but
yeah. Hey, Jack, before we close things off here, one thing I want to talk to you about: what's become of coaching today? It just we've seen, recently, obviously, as we mentioned, the Gruden thing. We see, of course, it's big money. And I think a lot of people are resentful about that, which, I can understand. But what it seems to be now, you really have to take a deep dive when you're going to hire a coach.
Yeah.
Not just beyond, and not just their ability to coach and lead, but those other aspects that you never thought you would have to deal with before.
It's changed. The landscape has changed so much, and the money has changed a lot of that, and it's almost nowadays they play the role of a CEO versus a head coach.
Right.
You know, they're overseeing an enterprise.
Yeah.
Maybe not as much, you know, at Washington State still, you know, because of where we're located and the whole bit. And I think that's a real plus. But you go into UW in Oregon and the USC and UCLA, and, you know, the metropolitan place schools, Stanford, and the monies that those coaches make, and it, you know, I can't even begin to imagine the pressures that they're under. I think ultimately, you know, that's one of the reasons why I think Coach Peterson stepped away. You know, he was once at Boise State, I think more to his
Right.
liking, and then, you know, he jumped out of the frying pan into the fire, you know, and he went to Seattle. But true to Coach Peterson's you know, style, he won there, and he won. So
well, he made his point.
Yeah, he did.
Yeah.
I mean, he went out on top. He really did. And on top of that, he's just a class act. I hate saying that about a Husky coach.
Well, you know, I think the other thing about him is that he talked about how, you know, the NC2A and football, the way college football has become, and I suppose the business side of it and all of these things, that it needs a revamping. And I'm not sure how you're going to do that, but I think he came to question just some of the things that you brought up. And it is a different type of thing now. You know, I'm just hopeful that, you know, that Coach Dickert, and he sounds like an educator as well as a coach, and a motivator. And to me, that if you can find a quality coach that has that ability and can bring that to the table, that's an important thing, because you're molding people and leading them.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's the other aspect of a college head coach, right? Yeah, versus a head coach of a pro football team. They don't care, you know. If they don't like that young person who plays, you know, left cornerback,
they can get somebody else.
Cut him. It's just a totally different game. And you know, being a head coach in a major college, because you're responsible for molding young men. You know, that student athlete thing, the term student athlete is very important, and yet you got to win on top of everything else.
Right. Mm-hmm. Right. So, well, Jack Thompson, thank you so much for taking the time to talk to us. We really appreciate it. And I want to go back to what, you know, your words that I just really appreciated when you came out with, you know, people asked you about it. No one is bigger than the university. And I think in this case, what I feel best about is that I think, as tough as all this has been, the integrity of the university, I think, has been maintained. And, you know, people are going to debate all of that stuff, but, you know, I'm happy for that part of it. And I'm proud of the university president and also Pat Chung. So
Enrique, you know, on that note, and I'm rowing right in the same direction. Something to keep in mind, you know, I was thinking about this, you know, our beloved Elson Floyd, right? He literally died trying, you know, to close, you know, that his one goal was to get us that medical school.
The medical school.
And to me, the medical school was the single most important thing that ever happened to my school in my years as a Coug. More than the Rose Bowls that we went to, it, you know, from a sports standpoint, you know, it pales against the importance of getting that medical school and for the reputation of our school. And, you know, who signed that and made it, you know, legal or whatever, was Governor Inslee. Whatever you think of him, he went against the grain, major Husky support, and he's a Husky.
And he's a Husky.
And yet, because of the force of nature that Elson Floyd was, got us that medical school, which is now appropriately named the Elson S. Floyd Medical School, right? School of Medicine. And I will tell you that if that situation was happening right now, we would never have that medical school. And you know, I was just thinking about that recently, actually this week. And there's a broader point to be, you know, pounded home here,
Right.
and the integrity of our school.
That's right.
And
That's right.
you know, and the memory of Elson S. Floyd. So, anyway, sorry to get heavy on you.
No, that's okay. No, very good point. And go Cougs.
Go Cougs.
Sorry, Matt.
Go
That's
Ducks,
okay. I'm all in with the Cougs if they win the Apple Cup.
Amen. Amen. Exactly. I'm with you. I'm with you.
Jack Thompson, thanks so much.
All right, guys.
Bye-bye.
Take care, guys. Bye, Matt.
Bye.